Video, I'll be demonstrating how to use GDevelop to create basic algorithms for a video game. As a reminder, our learning intention is that we are learning how to create digital products that are controlled by algorithms. And this game is just one example of a digital product that is controlled by algorithms. Now, in this video, I'll be covering some of the very basics as well as some of the more complex algorithms. So feel free to skip forward to the point where you need to. Firstly, if you haven't already installed GDevelop, you need to click on the installation file, and you can get this from your teacher. And when you double click on the installation file, it will bring up this menu which says you need to drag GDevelop. So click on GDevelop and drag that into your applications. Then, and since I've already got it, I probably don't need to have it, but you could keep both or you could replace, but I'm going to hit stop. Then you can launch GDevelop from your applications window, which is the F4 key. And if you search from the top GDevelop, you should be able to find GDevelop 5. Now, how do we actually start a new project? If you hit down the bottom here, create a new project, and you scroll down, at the bottom of this list, you will see empty game. And that is where we are going to start. As soon as you open an empty game, it brings up the project manager. And from the project manager, you can open a lot of settings, and some of these settings we will explore later in the video. But the first thing that you need to do is you need to create your first level, which is called a scene. So one of the key things to remember is that each level is called a scene. If you click add, you will now have a scene which you can rename using this menu down the side. So I'm going to rename my scene level 1. You might want to add a few more levels, so I'm going to add at least 2, and we're going to call them level 1 and level 2. To open and edit a particular level, you need to actually click on level 1 or level 2 from your project manager window. So I'm going to start with level 1. To get back to the project manager, you just click on the little icon at the top left, and that will open this up again. And you can swap between levels. You can go back into your settings, and that's something we'll explore in a little bit of detail later. Another very useful button at the top is this launch a preview. And there are some other settings down the side. This is a big one that I would suggest that you use is the zoom editor. So at the moment, everything looks really gray. But if I actually zoom out, I'm going to zoom out to say 50%. Now I can see this box, which represents the opening screen of my scene or of my first level. So this box represents what does the player, or what does the person playing the game, what do they see when the game first launches? But this is really, it's an infinite canvas, and you can definitely, if you hold down the space bar, you can drag and you can move this around. So you can put in as much in your game as you want, but let's just start very basic, and let's just start very simple. So I'm going to go to 50%, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, what we want to do, here we go, maybe put that in the middle. What we want to do is we want to have open our properties tab, which is this tab, this icon here. And we want to have our objects editor as well. And another helpful one is the layers, and that's this icon. So if you click on the first, the third, and the fifth icons, then you will have these 3 menus open on the side so that you can do a bit more editing to your game. And we also have the undo and the redo buttons as well. This button shows a grid, which you may want to show or you may want to hide, depending on how you want to work. We can't have a game unless we have objects, but in this tutorial, I'm going to create some very, very basic objects. So if I click on the plus button, it comes up with a menu, and I can choose from a really broad range of objects. But I'm going to start, I could start at the top, but I'm going to start with a tiled sprite. Now, a tiled sprite is an object that can, it says here, repeat itself over an area. So when you stretch out a tiled sprite, it repeats the image over and over and over again. Okay, so this is a really helpful one for our platform. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to rename this object platform. It's really important that you rename your objects so that you can actually see how big, so you can actually see what they're called. But speaking of big, 32 pixels by 32 pixels. We probably want to up that. I'm going to suggest maybe 100 by 100. Okay, and because 32 pixels is very small. So in order to actually add some design to this, you will click Create and you'll click Edit with Piscal. Now, for this tutorial, as I said, I'm not focusing on animation. Default size, you could probably change this. I've set mine to 160, but you can change this to whatever you want. But the size is pretty important, okay? Let's just go with 100 for now. In fact, I might even set my default to 100. What are we trying to create first? Let's create a platform. Now, I don't want to add a lot of detail just yet. I'm going to use blocks because the focus of this tutorial is actually all about the algorithms, not so much the design of your sprites. So I'm just going to use gray to represent a platform, and then click Save. So I've named my object platform. It's going to be gray. I've got my default width and my default height. There's a name of this, and this is now saved. By the way, anything that you create in your game, if you go into Documents and you go into GDevelop Projects, then you'll see that I think this is probably the new. Okay, so I've got a new file in this folder called My Project 6, and you can see I've got quite a few projects because I keep starting new ones. So anything you create will automatically save into your in Finder. If you go into Documents and then you go in GDevelop Projects, and that's I think very helpful for anyone who's thinking, oh my gosh, I've lost all of my stuff. Behaviors. We are going to click add a behavior to the object, and then it gives us another range of options, and we said that this was going to be a platform. This is an object that the player character can run on. So we're going to click platform. There's a couple of different options, and a ladder. If you've seen a ladder in the game, that's something that allows you to to climb up. A platform is something you run on. A jump through platform is something you can jump through and land on. But I'm just going to go with platform for now. And you may want to untick or leave this ticked. Ledges can be grabbed. It depends on what you want. So if I just check, I've got a name, I've got an image, and I've got a behavior. And I've also changed the defaults. So now I can drag this on and I can start stretching out. Now, if you had a detailed animation, you would notice that your animation probably changes. All right, and it repeats itself. Mine's obviously very basic, so it really doesn't matter how much I stretch this out. So I'm going to just create a platform, and notice that your platform can go anywhere on the screen. As I said, if you hold spacebar and you move it around, you can add this platform anywhere you want. If you hit Command C and then Command V on a Mac, you can copy and paste. Okay, so that's your platform. What you may want to keep in mind with a platform is the Y location or the X location. So I can see that this has an X position of 2. So if I really wanted it to start right at the edge of my screen, I'd probably set that to 0. And then if this is supposed to be on the same level as that, it should have the same Y. So if I have a look at this, let's just maybe make that 500. And then I'm going to make this 500, and then they should be in line. If I stretch this down, see how now it's moved to a height of 100. I probably want the height of this one to be 100 because they're supposed to be the same height and they are sort of parallel to each other, or they're at least at the at the same level on our grid. if you want to show the grid, it kind of might help you to line up your objects as well. So that's a platform. Some of the key things, it has to have a platform, it has to have a behavior. So when we edit our object, we must have that platform behavior. And if you don't have that, it's probably why it won't work. Next thing we probably need is a character. And for this, we don't want an image that repeats. We do want a sprite, just a single image. Now again, I'm going to add an animation, and I can upload, but I can also edit with Piskel. And for this, I'm just going to, just for now, let's keep the default as it is, but I'm just going to use black to represent my character. I'm going to use a black rectangle. I need to rename this object as character, and I need to add a behavior, because if I add a behavior, or if I don't add a behavior, nothing will happen. So platformer character, we're going to click on that, and it will give you a whole range of options, like, for example, how much does gravity affect this object, jump speed, ladder climbing speed, speed when running, things like that. So you can now, if we just check properties, I have a name, I have a visual representation of color, and I have a behavior. So this is going to act like a real object. And if I drag this into my game, I'm going to drag it anyway, and then let's hit play. And we can see that gravity acts on that object. In fact, the buttons, I'm pressing the space bar so that it jumps. Okay. But notice, I don't know what's happening off screen. So we've got an issue, and this is probably the first time that we need an algorithm. We've got our player, we've got our platform, but nothing's happening when we go past this point. And that is because the camera is not following the object. So that's where we need to go into level 1 events, and that's the tab next to this editing. This is where we edit all the objects and all the visuals in our game, but we have to put some coding behind. And you don't normally see the coding in a game, so that's why it's on another tab. And let's create an algorithm. If we go add a new event, you can see add a condition and add an action. So basically, if this condition happens, then this action should follow. So we're talking, this is the cause and this is the effect. And what we were saying was something to do with the camera. Now, if I just think about, let's play the game again. I want the camera to be following the player all the time. So really, I don't actually want to set a condition. We actually call that something that's unconditional. Okay, so at all times, we want this action to happen. So let's just leave condition, and then we'll go add action, and then we can search in the search bar for camera. We've got a lot of options for camera. One of the easiest ones would be center the camera on an object, and then we can go, well, which object do we want it to set to? We probably want the character, because there's actually multiple platforms, but there's only one character. And then let's just hit OK. Let's test. So now, as the character moves, the camera follows and tracks the position of the character. And that's exactly what we want. Now we can start adding many more platforms, and we can make our game as big as we want. We can increase our map. All right. One thing that's really important at this point is we need to save our work. And to do that, up the top of your screen, you can hit File, and you can hit Save. But if you notice here, this is telling you what the name of the file is and its location on your computer. So this is my user. It's in my documents folder under GDevelop projects and then my project 6. And at the moment it's just called game. I might want to actually specify what I call the game. So if I go and save as, I could call this, this is my best game. All right. And we could have spaces. Really doesn't matter at this point. But sometimes it's best not to use a space. So now I've renamed this file so that if I lose the file, I know exactly what to call it. All right, we've now got a platform and a character, and the platform The character runs on the platform, it jumps, and the camera also follows the player character. If you're not really happy with the position of the camera, if you're thinking, well, I don't want to see all this grey space, then you can actually edit this, and instead of saying center the camera on an object, you could center the X position of the camera. Choose an operator. We're going to say equals because that means set to. And then the value, well, what did we say we were setting it to before? We're saying the player. So, or did I call it character? Okay, so I have an object called character, and then it comes up with another menu. If you're not really sure what to press, well, what are we talking about? We're talking about the X position. So we must be talking about the X position on the grid of our character. So the X position of the object. And if we hit OK, see how the camera will now, it will track the player, but it hasn't bumped it up. Okay. If I wanted it to bump up, I could also, or if I wanted it to bump down, I could say minus 100, or I could say plus 100, and we'll see what effect that has. Okay, it doesn't look like it really has had an effect. Let's test that again. Set to character X plus 100. Let's go plus 1000 and see if it's a bit more noticeable. Okay, so now, okay, it's still tracking the player. I must be thinking about my Y movement. So I could maybe add an action, camera, because Y is up and down. Okay, so I could change the Y position of the camera, and let's set that to the character, and we'll set it to the character's Y value. Where is that Y value? But we might want a minus 100. Okay, so let's get rid of this minus 1000 because that's okay. That's made things a bit really odd. But let's see. Okay, now we have a bit of a gap at the bottom because it's actually bumping it up in the Y axis. Okay, I wanted to bump it up a bit more. I just increased that number. So we're going to go maybe minus 200 now. Okay, now it's going down. So we can see that maybe the minus makes it go down, maybe the plus makes it go up. Okay, so now it's at the top. So you can fiddle around with those numbers until you're happy. But otherwise, if you do want it to be centered, another way of centering it is just to have no numbers, and you're saying change the X position to the X position of the character. And then that kind of gives us the same formula that we had before, but with two different expressions. All right, we're happy with our camera. What's the next thing we want to add to our game? We want to add an object, and let's add a sprite. Let's aim to add a reward object. So we don't actually have to have a behavior, okay? Because most of our objects in our game don't need behaviors, except the platform and the character definitely do. So let's just leave the behavior tab. We can go add an animation, and I'm just going to again use, let's say green. Let's set the default size. Let's say green, and let's use the paint bucket. So anything green is a reward. And let's also add another object. Let's call it an obstacle. And again, this doesn't really have to have a behavior. I might say add an animation. Let's say red. I want the player to avoid anything red, and I want the player to collect anything green, because green is good and red might be bad. Okay, so our obstacle. Let's just put an obstacle somewhere in its path. All right, at this point in time, if I play the game, the character can just walk through the obstacle, and that's fine for now, but that's not what we want. Probably what we want to happen is if the player touches the obstacle, then at this point, let's just say the game might restart because they have to avoid these obstacles. So that's where we would need to introduce, in the levels tab, we need to add a new event. and we want to say something along the lines of, let's add a condition about if something happens, then something else should happen. So if let's start with the character. If the player character, let's think about some words we might use. So touches, okay, let's see, touch, the cursor touches on it. Well, we're not talking about the cursor, so that's not the right word. What are some other words that we could use? You could scroll through here. Oh, I found one, collision. So when we talk about objects touching, we talk about collisions. So if you search for collision, then what we're going to say is if the character collides with the obstacle, okay, let's leave that as our, so if the character is in a collision with the obstacle, what are we expecting to happen? We're expecting the level to restart. So let's type in restart. Okay, nothing about that. Let's talk about levels. Okay, the level. What did we say a level was called? A scene. Okay, now we have a couple of different options. Quit the game. I think that's a bit extreme. Change the scene. Okay, let's try that. Change the scene. Which scene do we want to change it to? Level 1. We're going to go back to the start of level 1. Okay, let's test it out. We've got if the player character is in a collision with the obstacle, change the scene to level 1. Let's test it out. So we're going along, no obstacles just yet. I ran into one. If I collide with it, it does change, and I've now gone back to the start of the scene. So I probably want to jump over that, and maybe this is a good point to put in a reward, because you've just done something, you've jumped over this obstacle, so maybe let's get rewarded for that as a way of, hey, congratulations, you overcame that obstacle. So let's put in our reward. We can test our game. What are we expecting to happen? We're expecting that if I hit this red object, I go back to the start. If I jump over it, oops, I didn't jump over it. If I am able to clear the object, didn't do it again. Here we go. Oh, so close. All right, and then I get my reward. Oh, something should happen there. So with this reward, we want to say if the player character collides with that object, what are we expecting to happen? Well, probably the reward will disappear. Okay, so for the moment, let's go into level 1 events, and we're going to copy something like this. In fact, if you create a new event, you can copy and paste this and then drag that into a new event. And instead of saying if the player character is in a collision with the obstacle, we can now change that to, well, the reward. If a player character is in a collision with the reward, then what do we want to happen? We want to probably something to do with disappear. Okay, nothing to do with disappear. Well, we want the reward. We want something to happen to the reward. So let's click into that. And visibility. We could hide. Okay, so let's click hide, and we'll see where that takes us. So this is a real test of my game playing ability. Oh, I didn't clear it again. Okay. Does it hide when we touch our reward? Yes, it does. Okay, so that's really cool. What you want to do next, now that you've got an obstacle and a reward, we probably want to add another object, and again, that's going to be a sprite. We want to take our player to the next level. So we might call this endpoint. We can't have spaces. I'll show you. If you have a space between endpoint, it's going to say, oh, no, that's invalid. That doesn't work. So let's go back into that by double clicking, or you can also click on here and go edit object. What are we going to call it? Endpoint, but without a space. We don't need a behavior. We're going to add an animation, and I'm just going to use, let's say brown, as if it was a door. Okay, so let's grab from my palette. That's not really brown, so I can change the color over here if I click on this box and then I drag and change the color. That's where you can also import HTML codes if you've got some. Paint bucket tool, we can paint that. That's not exactly the brown that I'm looking for, so I might want to slide this up and down. Maybe that's a better brown. That kind of reminds me more of a door. It's a little bit orange, but that's okay. Remember, we're not focusing too much on design and animation in this tutorial. We're just focusing on function. Does it actually work? So now we have a door. I'm just going to shrink down my reward so that I can jump over it a bit better. I'm just going to reduce the amount of challenge. And this endpoint, we want that if the player character touches the endpoint, or if we said if the player character collides with the endpoint, so let's go add a new level. We can go copy and paste, copy, and maybe hover over it before we hit paste. No, drag it in. Okay, that seems to work. If the player character is in collision with the endpoint, then what do we want to do? Well, before we said change the scene to level 1, which if we change the scene to level 1, we're kind of restarting level 1. We might want to copy that. Instead of level 1 though, we want it to go to level 2. Okay, so let's test it out. If I'm going along, I avoid my obstacle and I've got my reward, then it takes me, well, where is level 2? That is the question. So level 2, if we go into the project manager, looks really, really blank. Okay, you could start editing a new level, but my suggestion would be back in the project manager, we're going to go click and duplicate. So now we have a level, it says level 12 because it's just adding a 2 to the end of the name of our level. And we can hopefully drag this or move this up and down, move down. Okay, so now we've got level 1, level 2. Let's delete level 2 for now because that was empty. And level 12 is just a duplication of level 1 because really it's just level 1 with a 2 on the end. I don't want it to be called level 12 because I want it to go from level 1 to level 2. So let's rename and we can call it level 2 now. And that means hopefully if I look at my events, change the scene to level 2. Let's have a look. If I go over my obstacle, I collect my reward, and then I go, oh, now I'm on level 2. Except it is exactly the same because we haven't edited it. So what you might want to do is open up level 2 and make some changes to it. Okay, we can maybe put in a few more obstacles or maybe make a bit more challenging, but really you could just drag and change a few different things. We still want our endpoint there, but we might say, well, let's hold down space and let's drag it. In this case, we want our endpoint to be a lot further away. So let's maybe add a few more obstacles as well. Copy, paste. Copy, paste. All right, so we got a reward, but we gotta now get around some obstacles. Okay, so if we try this layer or this level or this scene, we can see that this is a bit different and perhaps a little bit more challenging than our original. It's still working exactly the same way, but now I've actually collided with an obstacle, so it actually took me back to level 1. So it's restarted the whole game. Obviously, if we're already in level 2, we probably don't want to change the scene to level 2 because this endpoint, we're going to need the endpoint to take us to level 3. So we might want to go level 3, rename. Okay, and we might say if you're on level 2 and the player collides with the endpoint, then we might want to take it to level 3. Okay, my wondering is let's probably start the game back on level 1 and let's test and see whether it works. I'm assuming that level 3 is going to be blank for now. Okay, so we've gone from level 1 to level 2. And now, oh no, I didn't make it. Okay, that's okay. Let's have a look at level 1 events. So if you're in level 1 and the player character collides with an endpoint, it will take you to level 2. And if you're in level 2, the player character is in a collision with the endpoint, it will take you to level 3. That's pretty much what we want. So let's, at this point, save our work. It's really important to keep saving your work. The next thing you probably want to do is you probably want to add an obstacle down the bottom of your game, because, and you could call this a death barrier, but you could just use the same obstacle, or you can maybe, if you duplicate this, you can create a new sprite. You will just have to say, for example, if I duplicated this and I called it obstacle 2, but I wanted to change the color, so I'm going to go edit, and I want to edit my animation. Maybe I want it to be blue, so like maybe it could be water. So let's change it to blue. Okay, so now I have a blue obstacle. Oops, it's edited both. Okay, so what we probably want to do instead, let's undo that. We don't want it to be blue, we want it to be red. It's probably better to create a new obstacle. So in this case, duplicating isn't really helpful, okay? But what we need to know is we can't actually call that obstacle and we can't have another one called obstacle. We need to have two different names. Because if I call this obstacle, it's going to say there's already another object that's called obstacle. So I can't call it obstacle because there's already something called obstacle. Let's call it obstacle 2. We might add an animation. Let's go with yellow this time because I'm not sure whether it's red or blue on the other one. And so this is definitely different. Obstacle 2. So basically what we want to say is if you touch this obstacle, just like the others, then the game's going to restart. So let's test the theory. If the player character goes down, oh, okay, so I haven't actually got any algorithm for that, but it's very simple. You can just copy and paste, and copy and paste, and then change this to obstacle 2. So if a player character is in a collision with either obstacle 1 or obstacle 2, we're going to change the level back. We probably need to copy that to our new level as well. So if we add an event, we can copy and paste that down, and we can say obstacle. Now we probably don't have obstacle 2 in here. Okay, so that's where maybe we probably want to duplicate level 1 again now that we've added something to it. Alright, so we probably don't need that just now. Last thing, this game's pretty good. It's very basic animation, but when you play it, even though it functions really well, so we're restarting when we hit that obstacle, we are restarting when we hit that obstacle, that's functioning really, really well. That reward, you pick it up and that takes you to the next level. That's all really, really good and fine, but my wondering is, how do I actually know how many of these green objects that I've actually picked up? So that's where we need a score. And the reason we opened the layers tab earlier is because if we put a score in, we want to add some text, and we might want to call it score. What do we want to display? Score. And maybe change the size, make it a bit bigger. And let's drag that in. Let's hit play. See how the score doesn't actually move with the player? So there's a problem there, but the easy solution is we actually want to put this score on its own layer. So if you click add a layer, we might call this new layer score layer, okay? And then when we go into score, let's click on our score. In the properties tab, now we can choose the layer, because now we have multiple layers. And if we put that on the score layer, then it's always going to sit on the exact same part of the screen. And hopefully, well, our score isn't actually doing very much at the moment, so we probably need to actually put in another algorithm to make a score. How do we do that? When we're talking about scores, we need to talk about, if we go to the project manager, global variables. Okay, so a variable, think of the word vary. If I said that the price of fuel varies each day, the price of fuel, varies means changes. So variables means that something in our game is changing. So your score is constantly changing. It might be going up when you get a reward. It could be going back down when you start a new level. But we need to actually go into global variables, and we need to create, where it says here add, we need to add a global variable. We can call this score. I'm just going to call it score variable so that you can see the difference between the text and the variable. And there's something we need to add here. It's not very clear, but we need to add a number. We need to make our score a number, and the logical thing to do would be to start at 0, because your score starts at 0. So now if I go into global variables, we've got a score, and we've got a variable for score, and we have a score starting at 0. What we probably want to do is, if we edit this text, we can double click here, initial text to display score. If I type in 0, it's just going to display 0 the whole time. It's not actually going to show anything. So what we want to do instead is add in the levels events tab, we go add a new event. And again, this is fairly unconditional. This has nothing to do with, if something happens. We want to say at all times, the score, we're going to modify the text of the score, and we want to set the text to a particular value. Now the value isn't, we can't just put in 0, because that would just mean that the score is always 0. We can't just put 100, because that would mean the score is always 100. So we need to go into this where it says valid expressions. We need to go into here and we need to add a new, see the blue box normally means add something. We were talking about variables before, and we're talking about global variables. So we're going to add a variable. Which one? We only have one at the moment, so we're going to go score variable. And then let's hit apply. So we're saying at all times, let's have a look at our code. No conditions, it's unconditional, meaning at all times, we're going to change the text of that text box to this score variable. And let's see, if we start our game, our score should be 0, and that's probably doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing right now. Now what we need to also say is, well, when we have a collision with a reward, we've already got a statement for that. When a player character collides with a reward, that's when we want the score to go up. So maybe we search score. Okay, but that's talking about the text box. So that really probably doesn't do very much. Let's actually, go back. Variables was the other word we were using. Clear the variable. Do we want to clear the variable? No, probably not. Remove a child. That sounds pretty scary. Value of a global variable. Something to do with the value of the variable. So the value of, well, which variable? Score variable. We want to, remember, we have to think about, what are we saying? When the player character collides with the reward, we want to increase our variable. And you can decide how much. I'm just going to go 100 points. And then we're going to hit OK. So what we're saying is, when the player character is in a collision with the reward, we're going to change the global variable of this variable. We're going to add to it. We're going to add 100. Okay. So let's test our game. If we get to our reward, what we should see is it should disappear, and we should get 100 points. Oh, there is an issue with that. And this is a pretty common issue. the reason is it's because we've used the word hide. So hide means that the object is invisible, but the object is still there. What we want to do is actually delete the object so that it doesn't actually exist anymore. And so that what we want to do, if we click delete the object, let's test it again. There we go. So I only got 100 points and I can't, there's no glitch and there's no hack to get those extra thousands and thousands of points. All right, so that's working pretty well. What we might want to think about is if we get some points, let's say I've got 100 points, I move on to the next level, my score's not there, so I'm going to have to copy that into the next level. But before we do that, why don't we think about, if I get some points, actually I probably didn't need to do that. If I get some points, and then, so I've got my reward, then I hit an obstacle, we're probably expecting that score to go back down to 0, but it actually doesn't do that yet. So I can just keep dying and respawning, and then I can go and collect that again, and then I can keep increasing my score. Now that's probably not something we want in our game. So what we might say is, when a character is in a collision with an obstacle, so now we've got a couple of different obstacles, but we want to change the scene back to level 1, and we're also thinking about variables. We might want to change the value of a variable, and in this case we might just say let's set it to 0, and we want to do that whether it hits the red obstacle or the yellow obstacle. So let's drag that down into there, and we'll see I'm currently on 0. I've just got a reward, but if I hit an obstacle I go back down to 0. Okay, so obviously now we need to think about how do we get this score to keep going onto our next level. Okay, so we just need to make sure that we have some of the things that we have on our level 1 and our level 1 events, they have to appear on level 2. Now the easiest thing to do, instead of going back through and creating them all again, is probably, let's hit duplicate again, and we might delete level 2 for now. In fact, we might even delete level 3 for now, because it's pretty blank. And we're just going to keep duplicating instead of going and creating a new level. It's good to test it, but if you duplicate, you get all of your algorithms, and that's a really good thing. Let's rename it. It's going to be level 2 instead of level 12, and let's move it down the list so that they're in the right order, and let's open it up. It's going to be identical to our other one, so we probably want to make some changes to it. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. Might just make it just a tiny bit different. Let's maybe make this a bit higher. I probably can't jump that high, so maybe that's a bit, too challenging. We can put that there. We can put our reward up here, and then if we start at level 1, we can see how. Okay, our score is starting at 0. I collect my reward. I avoid the obstacle, and I move to level 2. My score is still the same. This is a bit challenging, and as I collect it, my score keeps going up. So that's really cool. And I don't have a level 3, so it can't actually take me to level 3. In fact, it probably says change it to level 2. So I need to go back and I need to add another level. I could probably go back, duplicate, and I can keep following that same process. But my advice is get level 1 the way you want it, make that work for you, and then duplicate as many levels as you want. Okay, so level 1 needs to be as complex as all of the other levels, and then just duplicate it to make it easier for you so that there's less work for you to do, more efficient. Is there anything else? That's probably a good start for now. The only other thing I can think of is we might want to add the word score to our score. So if we double click where we said change the text to score, we can also add in brackets, it says here, a text must end with a double quote. So if we put in a double quote, we also need, it says you need to have a plus symbol between them. Okay, so anything we put inside this is going to appear. So if I say score, it's going to print the word score plus the number, which is a variable. Okay, so let's click, and now we have score 0. We might want to put a little space in between, so that space needs to go inside our quotation marks. Okay, and you can add a space. It really doesn't matter whether you put a space in here or not. That might just help you visually see what's going on. Put in a, yep, let's go. Let's have a look. Okay, score, there we go. So those are the basics of our game. Your next step is to edit. Once you've got these basics, your next step is to edit your player character, your platform, your reward, make them look exciting, make them look exactly the way that you want them to. That's what we call animation. But without the algorithms, it really doesn't matter what your animations are. So you need to get the algorithms right first. That's the most important part of your game.